What if I told you that after 7 seasons of Face the Issues, I'm not hosting this evening's show? That's right. As we continue our conversation about understanding AI, I'm joined by senior producer and co-host here at Lighthouse TV, Dawn Beaver, who will take the reins and join us for a conversation about the role that AI plays in politics and government. So what is that role? How does it work with voters? And what are government officials' greatest fears with AI? Dawn and I are going to start talking about those issues. That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues.
Welcome to Face the Issues, and as Sam just said, I'm Dawn Beaver, and I am not Sam Chen. But today, I'm joining Sam so we can talk about a topic that Sam knows very, very intimately, and that's politics and AI and how it impacts it. So first off, Sam, I'm so glad to be here with you there. And,
it's weird being in this seat for me, but this is great. And I appreciate you doing this. For our viewers that don't know, you stepped in and you've done a lot of this co-hosting for other hosts. And so really appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a blessing. So let's start off. So generative AI, can you first just explain what is generative AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've been saying in this series, right, that we're not talking about just AI. So artificial intelligence is anything that is not, it's artificial. Right. So we're talking spell check on Microsoft Word, automatic locking doors, your anti-lock brake system is all artificial intelligence. So generative AI is artificial intelligence that actually creates content. Okay. So you're not fixing something, it's not helping you do something, it is actually creating something out of nothing. And so, for example, spell check reads through what you've written and tells you where you've misspelled words. Right. But ChatGPT actually creates the entire text itself. And that's what we're looking at, generative AI. It creates something out of nothing.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's start off there.
Yeah.
So how is generative AI being used today in politics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like with all, I think the whole AI debate, it's kind of new, but not that new. It's just kind of now getting to the mainstream. Okay. What we're seeing now in the political space is that we're really seeing it work its way into advertising. And so in politics, I mean, political strategists, candidates have spent years and years and years trying to find that little thing the other person does wrong. Yeah. Right? Or they're trying to get that right sound clip. Like there's a perfect little sound bite that helps their campaign. Now they're starting to move away from that because maybe your opponent doesn't trip up, but we can create a world where they do. Wow. And we can do it with generative AI. And so we see, for example, in the 2020 and 2024 campaigns, we saw ads of President Biden and President Trump seemingly wandering, just meandering aimlessly in public and talking about their mental health capacity or their mental capacity. And none of those videos were true. Those were generated through artificial intelligence. But to a regular voter, to the naked eye, they look true, and that creates a certain image that President Biden or President Trump no longer has the mental capacity to be president. So that's one thing we're seeing. The other side of it is we're seeing these things called deep fakes. Yes. And we're seeing this more too in the national security sense. But we're creating videos now where someone like President Biden or President Trump, or even world leaders, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, Vladimir Putin of Russia, can give speeches that they're not actually giving. So we saw this in 2020. There was 2 ads that ran, one with Vladimir Putin, one with Kim Jong-un, where they gave a speech about democracy is ending in America and we don't have to do anything because you guys are just idiots in America. But they never gave the speeches. Right. And so they ran as ads and it looked like a threat. If we don't vote for this party, this is the end of democracy, but those speeches never happened. And so that's what we're seeing right now with it, and it's been very effective.
Are they not required to put any type of byline there on the ad to say, hey, this was created by AI or anything? Like, is there anything that can tie them and say, hey, you know what, wait, this isn't a real thing, but is there anything that keeps it clean there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is. So the Federal Election Commission does regulate some of this. And so in those ads I mentioned, the deep fakes, at the very end, there's a line that says, the previous footage is not real, but the threat is. But usually
it's small.
It is. And usually by the time you're getting there, people are tuned out. The emotional attachment has happened, and that's the way advertising works. So we see this with marketing, right? You'll see Olympic athletes endorse a certain product. And so there's this, my father has diabetes and uses this medicine to manage it. And then very, very fine print below, it says so-and-so's father does not have diabetes, right? And so, they're telling you, but the emotional attachment has happened. And that's you could say it's the advantage, it's also the fear when it comes to things with AI. Once that emotional attachment happens, it's very difficult to break out of it.
Wow. Okay. So all AI. That's a great point that you make, and that is very, very dangerous, as we can see. But are there any benefits in using AI in politics? And have you seen any? You have a group, you have a company. Does your company use it at all? I know that's a two-part question, but first, any benefit? Does your company use it?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think generative AI, people often think of it in terms of just the ChatGPT thing. It writes scripts for you, and we don't do that. We write our own scripts for our candidates. We're very in tune to how our candidates speak and their sound and their audience, which is the human element. And that's what generative AI can take out. It can remove that human element. Right. So we don't use it in that sense, but there is a benefit where AI, you can build models that help you process data, that really help you look at a demographic and say, here are your voters that maybe are registered Democrats but are more fiscally conservative. Or here are your voters that are Republicans but are more socially progressive. And AI can really help model that voter. It can help you parse through data faster. And so in that world, AI can not just be effective, but it can be a good helpful, where it allows you to process through data at a quicker level without necessarily creating this fake inauthenticity that we can see with deepfakes.
Gotcha. And so that's a good point. So there, when it comes to research, and that's what that sounds like, you use it for research. Do you know where they're pulling that data from? Do you have to enter that into a certain area? Or is there a certain AI offering specific for politics that you know that you can trust this information?
Yeah, not the latter. I think AI is just so new, everyone's trying to figure out what it can do. But I think to the former question, you use AI for research, but there's AI it's artificial, right? Or we also call adaptive intelligence. It adapts to the intelligence either of the inputter. Right. So if you design AI, it's going to be brilliant because Professor Donald Beaver III is inputting it, right? Or it adapts to the intelligence of the user. And so this is a place where if you don't know your stuff, if you're not an expert and you're trying to use AI, it's not going to help much. So I see this a lot in law and more in government side than in the political side right now. But in law, AI is often incorrect about what the law says because its input is either the public or it's adapting to the intelligence of the user. And so it might say something like the First Amendment doesn't protect speech that's offensive, but it does. And so this is you're not looking into a law dictionary, you're looking into an AI model that models language from the public. And so when we're using it for research, again, you have to be careful. It's one thing to program it to run through data sets that are entered into it from a reliable source. It's a whole nother thing to try to do it for research on something like law, where the information it's pulling from may not be from experts.
Wow. So would you say that this is just the tip of the iceberg? Like in a lot of industries, this is just the start of AI. And I think we're getting to a place where we're trying to figure out the benefits of it, the negative, disadvantages of it. Is this the future? Like, is there a future lane where it'll just be a de facto thing? Okay, we're going to use AI for this, that, and the other, whether it's research or something else. Has it gotten to a place, or do you see it getting to a place where AI is the future in politics?
Yeah, I think there's an inevitability to AI becoming mainstream. And it's, when social media came out, a lot of politicians resisted using it, but there's a certain inevitability to becoming mainstream. What will likely happen is there will be certain AI models that are more popular than others, just like there's certain social media models that are more popular than others, and those AI models will get the most business, the most work. There's a lot of smoothing out that has to be done. Right now, AI images, you could pretty much tell when they're AI, when they're not. So there's a lot of smoothing out that needs to be done. But I do expect it to continue to become more and more common and more mainstream, which means it becomes vigilant on the users, people like me, consultants, to be ethical and moral about when and how we employ it. And then the burden is going to fall on voters to be able to decipher between truth and reality and what's fake. And that's that can be a challenge.
Where's the government play into all of this when it comes to AI today? Like, based upon where our government is today in 2025, is there any regulation that's here besides what you mentioned before that you got to make sure you at least put in there that this is AI? Is there any? Do you foresee any progress or any coming legislation around protecting folks from potentially being duped or fooled by AI?
Yeah, there's going to have to be. And the reality is there will have to be regulations put in place. This is a big debate right now. Yeah. The current administration, Vice President Vance has said there should be zero restrictions on AI, and what AI can do is a violation of free speech.
Wow.
There are others like myself who believe that you're not violating free speech by limiting certain parts of a platform. I mean, the First Amendment has limits. Yeah. So for example, child pornography is not protected. And so you can't produce it and then get arrested and say that's a violation of my First Amendment rights. It's just not acceptable. Right. Business speech is allowed to be regulated. And I think that's the route Congress will go. Okay. Just like we regulate certain parts of business speech, we were going to apply those same restrictions to AI. My thinking is that's the route they're going to take, but it's going to take a while. Congress is known to be late. So I'll just give you one example.
Yeah.
Our data privacy laws for data on the internet in the United States were last updated in 1986. So I'm 37 years old. That's before I was born, was the last time Congress updated these data privacy laws. Everything goes a little bit slower, especially with technology, a little bit slower in Congress. So they're gonna have to tackle it, but it's gonna take a bit of a process.
Wow, Sam, this is so good. Let's take a break real quick, okay? Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. You can view our in-house studio productions on demand or watch what's on the station right now with our 24/7 live stream. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device or go to our website for more information. Visit lighthousetv.org to stay connected. There you can find out what's currently on the air and coming up. How to watch in your area on cable, satellite, broadcast, or streaming devices. Watch past programs or our live stream. Follow us on social media and learn more about the station, our hosts, and our programming. Lighthouse TV, positively different.
Welcome back. This is Face the Issues. And again, today we are talking with Sam Chen, our actual host, about politics and AI. And it's a really, really riveting conversation. Let's jump back in. Hey, Sam. So you've really blessed us, all our viewers there at home, about AI. And we kind of jumped right into the beginning of the conversation. So let's continue that. You specifically, right? You and I have talked. Having good character, and character is very, very important to you, right? And so, like, when it comes to the potentials of being AI having some deception here and there, what is your biggest concern when it comes to AI in politics and how it's impacting it today?
Yeah. Let me answer this in two ways. So let me start with the human element in campaigns and things like that. I mean, and we've heard so many of our guests say this throughout the series, there's a lack of the human element when it comes to AI. And fundamentally, it's deception. And in The Republic, Plato writes that society can't uphold justice through a lie. Yeah. And even if we utilize AI for great things, but we're doing it deceptively, we're essentially trying to uphold justice with a lie. And that's a big problem, morally speaking, to our character, but also how voters having to decipher between what's real and what's fake. And it creates a natural distrust among the citizenry. And so we already talked about how much we don't trust the government and how frustrated we are that we can't trust the government. Now add a layer to it where you don't know, not just do you not know if the government's lying to you, but you don't know if what you're watching is actually real. Right? And so there's that side on the human side of it that concerns me deeply. I can tell you on the government side, there's two main things the government has been concerned about. The first is the use of deepfakes. And we're seeing this in campaigning, but it's a much bigger problem if this comes into national security. So imagine for a moment, there's airtime on all the major networks, or it's a YouTube live situation, and President Donald Trump is addressing the nation about an invasion that's going to take place. But the whole thing is a deep fake. What happens then is those of us who've been trained to recognize these things, or the US government's going to come out and say, hey, by the way, that's not us. The White House is going to say, that's a deep fake. That was produced out of Russia, out of China. That is not occurring. But in our society, there's enough distrust of government officials and experts that a lot of people in the public are going to say, no, I believe that video. I saw the president say this. And in that situation, even though it's fake, the United States can be thrown into chaos simply because someone from a foreign country, or even within, has figured out how to manipulate it. The second thing that Congress has been concerned about for actually 30 years now, way before AI has become mainstream, is utilizing artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, to disseminate child pornography. And Congress had passed a law to stop that in the 90s, and it was struck down by the Supreme Court. And the reason was, at that point, AI was so poorly done that they said there's no child being harmed. And it is so obvious that this is not real that nobody's going to fall for it. But in today's world, where AI has gotten better and better and better, Congress has been thinking about bringing this back up.
I was going to ask you that.
The challenge comes that generally with things like child pornography, the law has been you cannot harm children, and this harms children. But what happens now when it's AI and it's not real? And yet we all know, we all understand that there is an emotional and psychological effect that is going to occur on children and on people across this country and across the world. Everybody understands that, but the law is such that no real physical child individual is actually being affected in that particular video or that particular image. And so Congress is very concerned about the deepfake threat of national security and the potential use of generative AI to disseminate child pornography.
Wow, okay, that was a lot there. So one thing that I keep wanting to hone in here, is this a partisan issue at all? Like, is there a Democrats are for, Republicans, or do we feel as it's a bipartisan issue where it's like no matter what side you're on, this is a potential issue?
That's a great question. It's generally bipartisan, and in both ways. And so there's a bipartisan concern about national security. There's a bipartisan concern about child pornography. But there's also a bipartisan concern that if we step too far, we're going to violate free speech. And so, and part of that is driven by the fact that both parties have utilized AI to help campaign. And so there's always a little sense of, well, if it's helping us, then let's keep doing it. And it's helped both parties. So there is a bipartisan concern, but also a bipartisan skepticism that we maybe don't want to push this too far.
Gotcha. Is there anything that you believe, and this may be a tough one, that not just the government, but organizations will start to do, that desire to make sure that there's an awareness about what is real and what is not real? I mean, you just said it earlier that the professionals can tell, right? Is it almost like with anything where how sometimes they talk about, you hold up money to tell whether it's counterfeit or not. There's guidelines as to how to determine, okay, if it looks like this or it does this or that, then maybe it's fake. Do you foresee any type of movement to start to help the normal person determine whether this is real or fake?
Yeah, I do, and there's always going to be people who speak up and say we need to figure out how to help people understand what's real and what's fake. There's always going to be that, and so I think you're going to see some of that. I think the challenge is, number one, human nature is very selfish. And if businesses realize they can capitalize on it, politicians realize they can capitalize on it. I mean, this whole series has been talking about it. When people realize they can capitalize on using generative AI to benefit themselves, they're going to kind of not want the public to be able to tell the difference. And so it needs to be people whose vested interest is in the truth, and in moral character, and in teaching the public these things, and not in the benefit that generative AI can bring them. The second challenge is AI keeps developing. And so it's going to get better and better and better, which means that kind of learning how to deal with it is going to have to keep improving. Similar to the counterfeit dollars thing, right? Counterfeiters getting better and better. And so it's going to have to be a continual process.
Is there any pressure, or do you foresee any pressure on the AI creating companies, the folks that are creating, they have these AI offerings, Google and others, to say, hey, ours it protects you from this, or ours. Do you foresee maybe on that end? Maybe I get it. The almighty dollar oftentimes really drives a lot of what goes on here in America. But do you foresee that being almost like a human interest plea on the side of AI to go, well, wait, use our offering because we do not allow this and we do not allow that and do not allow this and that.
Yeah, there's going to be some of that. In fact, right now, a lot of these organizations are having that fight internally. So a few months, maybe a year ago, OpenAI had this big situation where the board left. They left the CEO, let the CEO out, then the CEO came back. And that fight at OpenAI was actually over whether or not they put in ethical guidelines to use artificial intelligence.
Wow.
So you have half of this team at OpenAI saying, no, we let innovation go wherever it takes us. And that's dangerous, right? I mean, this is how things like the Holocaust happened.
Yeah.
On the other end, there was a group saying, no, AI can be great as a tool, but tools need to be in the right hands. Right. And so we need to put protections and ethical protections around it. Yeah. So in the AI community, that debate is happening. And so I do think you'll see some groups kind of come out and say, hey, our version is more protective about things. You're seeing this with social media. Certain outcomes, like DuckDuckGo, right, I think is the search engine that says we're protecting our users from outside ads and their information being stolen. And that's their marketing ploy. So you'll see some of it. How mainstream will it get? I'm not sure.
And what do we do? I know earlier you mentioned trust, right? American people, and we've even talked about this before, about how oftentimes folks you don't know who they trust, right? They don't trust the mainstream. They don't trust the experts, right? So what do we do in America? I'm sorry if this is too big of a question.
No, not at all. Not at all.
What do we do in America when some folks don't trust you as the expert to even try to determine whether, hey, this is real or not? Even in the example that you just used, when you said, deep fake, this is the message that's being disseminated. Oh, this is it. What do we do about those folks? Do we just give up on them? Or is there something we can do to try to convince folks, hey, like, what you're seeing here, here's how you vet it.
Yeah, I think on our end, we always have to make that effort, right? If we can't convince them, that's not on us, but if we don't try, that is on us. And so I think first, you demonstrate it. You don't just tell them, right? And one of the things people can't stand is being told what is true. Show them what is true. And you see, as Christians, Jesus does this in the scriptures. He speaks and then he illustrates. He speaks and he illustrates. And part of the distrust of the government is the government has told us so many times, this is the way it is, and then we find out it's not. Journalists saying this is the way it is, we find out it's not. That journalist has lost credibility. And so we need to show them why this is not real. We need to demonstrate for them, whether that's through looking at the graphics and why it's not real, or through just basic logical thinking. Let's think through this. Would President Trump say this when the other day he did this, right? Having them think through that process. And so I say on the one end, it's demonstrating it, not just telling people to accept it because you're the expert, but using your expertise to demonstrate to them why this is not a real ad or a real speech or fill in the blank. And on the other end, it's about building that trust. Right? We need to build that trust through relationships, through being truthful. And this is where the longer we live in this world of saying, but AI can make me a lot of money. AI can help my candidate win races. The longer we live in that world, the less trust we build with the public, right? But if we come into an approach and say, listen, our firm is going to use AI for this, this, and this, but we're never going to do it for this, this, and this, and we're just honest about it, people are much more willing to engage that conversation, even if they disagree with you. Even if they disagree with you, they're much more willing to engage and trust that even if you are on different parties, different sides of a disagreement, that you are doing your best to be honest and authentic, and that's where the trust begins to build.
Thank you for that, Sam. Let's take another break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Face the Issues is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. You can view our in-house studio productions on demand, or watch what's on the station right now with our 24/7 live stream. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website lighthousetv.org for more information. Lighthouse TV, positively different.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. Again, we're here with Sam Chen, learning a great deal about AI and politics. But now we want to get more into Sam Chen as the person. So let's ask him some questions about that. So Sam, again, so grateful to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like to be able to get from you and hear you do more talking, because oftentimes you serve it up for the host, for the guests that are here, and they get to hear about them. But you got so much in you that folks don't know at home.
That's
so
kind.
let's
That's
dive
very
into
kind.
that a little bit here, okay? So the first question I have for you is, what's your why? I know people always often ask this, but really genuinely, Sam, why do you do what you do?
Yeah, I guess asked a lot by my students, and you and I both teach at the college level, and my students ask me this all the time. And I think they look at my career and they go, you've been in politics, you've done the media bit, why come teach? And what I've realized early in life is that if you want to win a moment, if you want to really make an impact in a moment in our history, invest in the product, invest in the political campaign, and you think like, these products change these moments in history until they go away and something else comes in. If you want to change a generation, you invest in an idea, right? Really investing into an idea, you will change a generation of history. But if you want to change an eternity, you have to invest in people. Wow. Right? That's what actually matters at the end of the day. When we leave here, if at my funeral, someone's reading off my win-loss record as a campaign strategist, I will be turning in my grave, right? That's not the legacy we want to leave. And so I've realized if we want to change eternity, we have to invest in people. And that's what drives me every day to get out of bed. How can we invest in people? I believe in investing in ideas. I believe in putting good people into office. I believe in all of those things, but that's driven by a fundamental investment into the person. So even if my candidate loses, can I make sure that the day after election day, that person can look in the mirror and recognize who they are?
Wow.
Right? That's the kind of investment that we need to make, and that's why I get out of bed every morning.
Wow. And so, Sam, for someone trying to get into this line of work, whether it's the politics side, the connection with the government things, what would you tell them? How did you get here? And what would you tell them as advice for considering whether that's something that they want to do and lead their life in that direction? Yeah.
So two things I would say on the larger picture advice-wise is know yourself. And because if you don't define who you are, and we're not defined by the things that we do or the people that we know, but that is how politics, that's how Washington, D.C. wants to define us, right? I'm always introduced as the people I've worked for or my current job. If you want to make in this business, you've got to define yourself by who you are, and that determines the significance of your relationships and the success of everything that you do. And if you don't figure out who you are, it will be decided for you, and that is the most tragic life you can live. On the completely pragmatic side, what I always tell young people is go work in food service. Because food service teaches incredible life lessons about how to deal with people. You start understanding the difference between wealth and class. There's so many life lessons that food service brings you that it really prepares you for any job, but especially for a job in politics.
Wow, Sam, this has been a delight. This is it for our time, but so we have to do this again in the future.
Absolutely.
This is fantastic.
You're welcome to take that seat anytime.
Thanks, Sam. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. On behalf of Sam Chen, our guest today, and our normal host, and the team here at Lighthouse TV, we just want to say thank you for watching and have a great evening.